We want to convene our members of our diplomatic community. Larry Haas is a former White House official and a senior fellow at the American Foreign Policy Council. Jeremy Kinsman is former Canadian ambassador to both Russia and the European Union. Larry, I guess I'll begin in Washington. What do you make of what's going on? What do you make of what's going on there?
Well, certainly it was an untenable situation that we have with the president and the Secretary of State. You can't have these two officials arguing with one another in public. You can't have the president of the United States undercutting his secretary because foreign diplomats, foreign leaders don't know why they're spending any time with the Secretary of State because they don't think he has or really is voicing the word of the president of the United States. And that's an untenable situation. Now, so the good news is that the president will have someone in place, Mike Pompeo, who he likes more, he trusts more, he sees more eye to eye with. On the other hand, for those who are concerned about the direction of U.S. foreign policy, it seems to me that the president now has another engine, another tool at his disposal, because Mike Pompeo is very much an adherent to the Trump credo of America first. America, taking care of itself, less multilateralism, more unilateralism, and a more hawkish foreign policy. So for those who are frightened by that prospect, it seems to me there's more to be frightened about with Tillerson, who was somewhat of a break on Trump's instincts, out of office, and now Mike Pompeo to be nominated to replace him.
Jeremy, what's your view on this? I mean, he was fired by tweet.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't it? Look, he was not a great Secretary of State. Let's be frank about that. He just about wrecked the State Department. He focused entirely on compressing it, on procedure, on budget. It's a bit like our Global Affairs Department. He forgot about the policies, But that being said, as Larry points out, I'd say he's a moderating influence on Donald Trump. I'm not sure how much influence he had, but at least he was another voice. Now Donald Trump, frankly, has it all his way. He said at one point, I think to Fox News, I'm the only one that matters. And now that's true. Mike Pompeo, a very right-wing guy, he's intelligent, but honestly, this is a guy who thinks waterboarding isn't torture. He thinks Guantanamo's great. He wants Edward Snowden executed. He wants the Iran deal torn up. I mean, this is Trump's kind of guy. And I think that's very, very dangerous. Trump is now just dancing with his own appreciation that finally he's broken all the reins on him. And so it's off to the races. I think it's going to be a very, very weird time.
Larry, just about 24 hours ago, Tillerson chimed in the UK's favor and against Russia on the Skripal poisoning on Monday. Do you get the sense that that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back?
I think it's quite possible. He was very forthright, very forthcoming, stood, shoulder to shoulder with Prime Minister May, and look, Donald Trump is not one who has been willing to blame the Russians for almost anything, even outrageous conduct like it looks like we have now in Great Britain. So it is quite possible. There are news reports that the Chief of Staff, General Kelly, had warned Rex Tillerson a few days ago that something like this was coming and he should cut short his trip. But you really have to wonder whether that is after the fact spin that's been given to some reporters or whether it's really true. But for those who think that this final comment by Rex Tillerson about the Russian poisoning was the final straw, there's real evidence to suggest that maybe that's so.
Jeremy, the man who's taking over the new job, Mr. Pompeo, he, part of the CIA, the head of the CIA, director, and agreeing that Russia did hack in the election. Does that put him at odds at all with his president?
Curious. It is curious. He joined his colleagues with that finding. Of course, Trump has now acknowledged that it's very possible Russians did interfere in the election, but nobody, and least of all the Republican members of the House, concede that it had anything to do with the result. That is Trump's big preoccupation. I don't know where the Russian thing is going to go. This weird situation that 4 or 5 days ago, Scott, I was saying I couldn't believe it could be the Russian state, that they would do such a thing. It was extremely worrisome. I'm now actually, it may well have been now, I'm willing to concede, and it would be worrisome. But you know what would be more worrisome? As if the Russian state didn't know that some of these terribly toxic, lethal nerve agents had, in fact, leaked out of their laboratories into some unsavory hands. I was hearing today from somebody in Britain, there's a theory that maybe this stuff actually has been kept since the 1990s, since the Wild West days of Russia, to be saved up for an occasion. Don't forget that Kim Jong-un's half-brother was bumped off with exactly this kind of a nerve agent, and he must have got it from somewhere. So there may be an alternate source. But either way, it's terrible news. And I hope Russia takes it as terrible news, rather than just going on and sparring competitively with a hapless Theresa May, who, by the way, has finally got a House of Commons in agreement with her on something for the first time since she was elected.
Larry, are there implications with the UK and the US, obviously very close partners in NATO? If the UK deems this as an attack, does the US, is it compelled to do something?
You know, it's Article 5, which goes back to the founding of NATO and says that an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us, which was in fact directed at the former Soviet Union. So this is all history coming full circle, is a provision that ties NATO together, but it needs to be invoked by somebody. And whether this is really going to rise to the occasion of an attack on Great Britain, as opposed to a very dastardly deed against an adversary of Vladimir Putin, is not entirely clear. I think Donald Trump will be in a difficult position if Theresa May decides to really do something serious about this. You know, booting some diplomats, which maybe she will do, I don't think compels U.S. action. Freezing financial assets, boycotting the World Cup, which is supposed to be in Russia later this year, other measures like that, well, that puts Washington in a little bit more of a difficult situation. But I'm not convinced yet that Theresa May is going to go down that path. So I don't really know that Washington is going to be compelled to act when all is said and done. 45 seconds left.
You can be sure of one thing, that England is not going to be kept out of that World Cup.
About 30 seconds left here, so I need a quick answer from both of you. The proposed meeting between Kim Jong-un and Trump, do you think it should happen? Jeremy?
I actually doubt it will happen. I think it's just too darn complicated, and something's going to go wrong. I don't know how much this has to do with that election in Pennsylvania tonight.
Larry?
Look, it's good to have the two countries talking, but in every other way, this worries me. Summits between world leaders, are very risky, and Donald Trump is clearly not going to be prepared for this. So I actually hope that it doesn't happen.
Larry Haas in Washington, Jeremy Kinsman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.